Hello everyone, RegiTime here. It's another edition of the hand review vloggy type thing. Not going to talk too much yet about how the month's been going because we're still very early in it, but we're pretty much on course for what I'm wanting to achieve for the month at the moment. But as I said, it's still very early days and things can go in a lot of different directions. I'd just like to say I'm really pleased with the responses that the video's been getting. We're not getting like loads of views, which is pretty understandable for a small channel, but we're getting loads and loads of thumbs up. Please keep them coming. We get some really nice comments too. I really do appreciate that. It helps me stay motivated to continue making this kind of content. It feels like we've fell upon something now that you guys are liking. And I'm certainly liking doing it. So yeah, let's keep the thumbs up going. Let's keep the comments coming. Shares if you could. Just help the channel grow a little bit. It'd be smashing. Don't forget, if you're not a member of the Facebook group, please do come along and join that. But please remember, it's a recreational Facebook group. We don't tolerate any, and we don't have any, to be fair. We don't have any at all. There's no trolling. There's no bitching. We've got a vast array of different player types in the group, from heavily recreational to guys who are probably making a living at the game. So yeah, it's a good group. Please do come along and join it, but just respect the rules at the top of the group, and it's all good. So yeah, we're going to get in some hands here. I said at the end of last month, I think at the start of this month, that I needed to, or I wanted to try and be a little bit more ruthless. There's some hands we're going to look at today that that display that, with somewhat mixed results, shall we say. But yeah, we're gonna get stuck straight into it here with the first hand, and we're looking at this ace-3 suited on table 1. We make a very standard open. We've got two very good tables. We can open much looser at tables where you think there's a lot more maybe loose passive players, where you're not going to be facing as many 3-bets, etc. This wouldn't always be an open. If I had some good regulars behind me, and maybe wouldn't open the ace-3, but at this table we're going to be opening pretty much 100% of the time. We get a call out of the small blind from a complete unknown. Checks to us. We make a standard c-bet. I mean, we could check back here. It's arguable we have a modicum of showdown value, so and obviously we have a strong draw. Maybe we could check back some of our ace-high flushes here and bet some of our smaller flushes that don't have as much showdown value. But at the same time, I think it's a completely fine c-bet. Our unknown opponent check raises us 4x. It is a draw heavy board. Sadly, we block the nut flush draws that he's doing this with. I mean, I think his range for doing this is going to be reasonably strong. It's going to be sets, it's going to be flop straights, some 2 pairs in there, maybe some worse flush draws occasionally, maybe just some 10x that's testing the waters. But because I've been trying to force myself to play more aggressively, I decided to take an aggressive route here. And I'm not sure that's too great, to be honest. We got a check raise of 4x. When we could think about peeling one off, we could just think about folding. I don't like any of the options really. I mean, folding's the worst option. I think we could call, but if we break the turn, it's after it's 4x the flop. You would imagine you're going to be facing an awful lot of turn pressure. I'm still not sure I like the line that I took though. We do 3-bet him here. Do a pretty big sizing. And then he goes all in. And at this point I think we have no choice but call. It's £16 into 45, so we're getting 3-1 on our money. What are we to hit our flush here? 30% maybe, something like that. We got what, 9 outs twice. We got 30%. So I mean, if he does have a straight or a set, but only just getting the correct odds. If he has less than that, if he's a top pair hand and our ace is live, then obviously we're doing a little bit better. And then we have the ever-present backdoor shit low draw, shit straight draw. could come the 4-5, and sometimes we win there. So yeah, I think we have to call once we elect to like make this flop 3-bet. No choice but call it off. I think the decision point here was more: do we 3-bet call it off, or do we just peel one off? And I mean, obviously we do make the call. He does show us the bottom set, and sadly we do not improve. Well, we do improve, but not enough. And I'm going to touch on my increased aggression slightly later on in the video. There's a couple of other hands, or at least one that I know is going to come up that where I was more aggressive than usual. And yeah, I'm not sure that. Yeah, well, we'll talk about it later on, because I think that being excessively aggressive in games with lots of green players who aren't particularly aggressive themselves, so like reacting to their aggression with aggression of your own, isn't necessarily the most optimal way to play. But there's another hand later on that we're going to touch on, and it might have been the next hand, I'm not sure, that maybe allows me to expand on that a little bit further. But yeah, I think generally when we get check raised by unknowns or by passive players, nut flush draws go down in value a little bit, because you know they're not going down in value as much as like if you make the nuts, obviously you got a very good chance, you got good implied odds. But I think now if I could have that hand back, I think I'd prefer to just call and try to spike my hand and play some turns rather than just pile all the money in. I guess what I'm saying is I think I can do better against probable recreational players than just piling all the money in with a nut flush draw and hoping to get there. I think it feels like I can do better than that. I think I've maybe over adjusted a little bit with the aggression at the start of this session. I adjusted towards the end of the session and things got a lot better for us. But yeah, I think against like really good players and really aggressive players, I think just piling it in here is going to be fine, because they're going to have some worse draws. They're going to have some like, who knows, some like weaker made hands maybe that's just like they're being aggressive with. I think against unknown players who I suspect are going to be passive, 3-bet jamming flush draws probably isn't the most optimal way to play. But yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more on future hands too. So here now we have the 2 aces. I remember this hand too. I haven't looked at it back, but I remember this hand too, and it's going to be like completely opposite to the last hand. And you're going to have a lot of you guys scratching your heads. It might even have me scratching my head when I look at it in review. So we have the 2 aces. We make our standard open. And the flop comes down 10-6-4 with a flush draw, or an already potentially made flush out there. We bet and get raised, and spoiler alert, we're going to fold here right now, and I'm not sure I like it, but at the same time, given what we just said in these games, I just don't think these green tag players have anywhere near enough bluffs in this spot. We have the ace of clubs, obviously we continue, and this could be a very, very, very bad fold. But every time I've been raised post flop in these games, apart from by the absolute maniacs, the guys have just, sometimes I've had the best hand, but the guys have just turned up with like super value heavy ranges, incredibly value heavy ranges. Do I think that Burnsy, who I've got not tons of history with, but I think I know his game pretty well, do I think he's just like raising here with, say, the naked ace of clubs? No, I don't. I mean, he could be, of course, but I think it's not how I profile Burnsy. Burnsy is a very sticky player. He's quite cally. He can be aggressive when he has the initiative, but I don't recall being check raised by Burnsy very often. I don't know an awful lot about his check raising range, but that probably means he doesn't have much of one. It's going to be a pretty strong one. And I was sat in this situation, and I was just thinking to myself, do I think my hand is worth like another £16 here? Because if Burnsy does have the type of hand that he's representing, that's what it's going to cost me to see all 5 cards. And I'm very, very, very wary of check raises, particularly on these boards, on monotone boards versus players who aren't very aggressive. I don't know what he's doing with his sets here. I'm not saying he's just flopped a flush, but there's lots of things he can have. He can have all the 2 pairs for sure. He can certainly have flopped some flushes. He can have all the sets. And I think his bluffing range is just literally going to be like the naked ace of clubs, if he has a bluffing range at all. And I just thought, you know what, it's a small pot. He's going to put tons of pressure on that I'm not really going to be able to handle. And I'm not saying I love this fold. I don't like it. I didn't like making it. But at the same time, I think as we talked about in the previous hand, reacting to passive players' aggression with further aggression, especially when, I mean, look how long it took me to fold it, especially when your hand isn't that strong. I mean, with a pair of aces there, it's pocket aces, it's a nice hand. But if a lot of money goes in there on turns and rivers, it's super unlikely to be the best hand. And we don't really want to be paying off too often in these games without a bloody good reason. And I didn't have a good reason there. I'm pretty familiar with Burnsy, and I don't see him as an aggressive player. Other guys who play in Sky regularly might have a totally different read. But my read on Burnsy is that he's not particularly aggressive. Certainly not in like check raise spots or monotone flops. I've had no reason to think. I've got no notes on him, so that means I haven't seen him do anything spectacularly bad or spectacularly spewy. And he's just likely to be like a very sticky calling station type player. And if that is the profile, and I'm right in that, then I think continuing with 2 aces on that flop against this player type, I think it's going to be not ideal. So yeah, I'm not happy with that hand. I think we maybe could have continued, seen a turn, and then reacted to what he did. The old-fashioned call and reevaluate, which is one of my most hated fucking lines in poker. I'm not a call and reevaluate type of person. I tend to try and make decisive decisions early in hands, and then only kind of change route if the board changes significantly. And I just felt like this wasn't a great spot, and I got out of it early. But I mean, we could easily have been bluffed there. But it's fine to be bluffed from time to time. You know, you can't win every pot. It's okay to be... I'd rather be bluffed a little bit too often, lean more towards overfolding in these games than I would to just, like, being super sticky and calling down light. Because I think overfolding, you know, we make a few mistakes. They're not that expensive. Calling down too often, you make a lot of mistakes, and they're often very expensive. So for this hand, I apologise to you guys in advance who are watching on like mobile phones and things. We have gone 3 tables. I know it doesn't look great on mobile devices, 3 tabling. I know it's hard to work out to see the numbers and what have you, and the picture quality isn't exactly great, but there's nothing much I can do about it. I guess I could just set up recording 2 tables and drag tables in and stuff, but it'd just that'd be equally as messy. So I do apologise. Nothing too much I can do about it though. So anyways, we have the ace king on the middle table. We have opened to 3x. It's a 20 on L table. 20 on the table here. We've opened to 3x with ace king. We have been 4-bet by an unknown player to, what's that, 9.5 big blinds. I could go either way here. No issue with 4-betting sometimes. I think if he had a shorter stack, if he was down in like the £15 region, the 14, 10, 12, whatever, it's an unknown player. I've not seen him before. I'm going to assume he's more likely to be a weak player than a good one, but we don't know. If you had a shorter stack, I'd be happy to just like pile the money in there. Well, I wouldn't pile it in, but 4-bet, call it off. I think at like 300 and odd big blinds deep though, I think, sorry, not 300, 150 odd big blinds deep. I think getting ace king in pre versus an unknown, I think it'd be pretty spewy. So we elected to just call, take a flop in position, very deep stacked. That we had a hand earlier in the month where we called a 3-bet in position deep stack with king jack suited. I think being in position in spots where you're deep stacked is a huge advantage, and keeping the pot a little bit smaller and using stack depth to apply pressure or just to get super good implied odds depending on what happens in the hand is really good. I think that's kind of if we 4-bet here, we're giving up like such a big advantage in terms of having position on somebody, and we're just going to get them to fold too many hands against. They're likely only going to continue with pretty strong ranges that Ace King doesn't do anywhere near as well against. It does against the 3-betting range. Of course, you run the chance of missing the flop and him having like an Ace Jack and C-betting and making us fold. That's a risk you take. But I think all in all, when you bundle it all up, I think calling here, taking a flop and looking to make maximum advantage of make the maximum from our positional advantage it's a decent play in these games. Again, against a tougher opponent, maybe not, but against someone who I don't know, who I think post flop in position are going to have a pretty big advantage over, I like the play. It's not for everyone's taste, but it's part of my style. So, anyways. An opponent makes a C-bet for around the same size as he bet pre-flop. Nothing to do here other than call. It's a really easy decision. Nothing to talk about really. Board super dry. No reason to want to raise. Turn 3 shouldn't change anything. He bets again. He bets a little bit bigger than he did in the flop. In terms of like percentage of the pot, not much bigger. At this part, I'm thinking the guy's got king queen, pocket aces, ace king. Not very much air. I don't think he has much air in this spot. I don't think he has pocket queen. So I think his range is going to be like ace king, king queen, pocket aces, maybe some king jack suited, king 10 suited, depending on how wide he's 3-betting pre. But again, no real reason to raise. Kind of just want to call here, and if it's a tough spot if you like if we call here and the river just bricks off, comes off like the random, I don't know, like deuce of diamonds or something, and the bomb's really big. I think we're going to be in a tough spot. I think it's going to be maybe a fold on this board texture. Pretty exploitable because it's not too many hands he should have that's beating us. But you'd start thinking about like pocket kings, pocket aces, ace king, and then the hands we beat would maybe be king queen, king jack if he's like prone to overplaying. So yes, it's not the best of spots at the moment. It's by far from a bad spot either. We just call again, and we make trips on the river. And I think it's an interesting spot depending on what size he makes it here. If he goes really big, then I mean, we just probably just call, I think, because if he goes like really big, is he going to call with worse? I don't know. I mean, it's just very unlikely he has any flushes. Like queen jack of clubs is the only thing that makes it. Maybe like ace, well, they can't have ace x of clubs, can't have king x of clubs. So like queen jack of clubs, I'd pretty much discount him having any flushes. I mean, maybe he just has like 8s or 6s full. Maybe he's 3-betting pocket pairs pre. But I think whatever he does, I think it's just he's going to bet. We should probably jam because I just don't think he has flushes very often at all in this spot. If he checks, then I think we need to make like the kind of bet size that's going to get paid off by maybe pocket queens if he's just like stabbed with that twice, just trying to not wanting to like give up control of the pot. So if he checks to us, I'm going to be betting maybe around £6. If he bets, we're probably going to go all in. He does bet here, but he bets like really small, like 1/5 pot. I don't think he's doing this with a hand that beats us at all. I think he uses a much bigger sizing with a hand that beats us. Especially if we did have a hand like pocket 6s or pocket 8s, he's just going to hope we've got the king and just pile a large bet in. Because I know that's what most people would do. It's certainly what I would do. I think we have no choice here but just like slam all the chips in, and if somehow he has the cure for our trips and that good blocker, then good for him. So he did fold. I think we either caught him in some kind of bluff there, or he just had a hand like pocket aces, I think, maybe pocket queens, something like that. I don't think he ever folds a king there. If he's got king, queen, king, jack, I don't think too many people are going to be folding trips there, or using that betting or using that sizing to begin with. So I think he either had like a scared pocket queens, a scared pocket aces, or just some random bluff. I'm not sure what he had. It doesn't really matter what he had. We're not going to get to find out, and we took down a reasonable pot. So the next pot here on table 1, we have the Ace King of Spades. We open. Excuse me. We get 3-bet by this guy here, doubles number 7 or something I think it's called. And I want to go back to what we talked about in the first hand now about responding to passive players' aggression with our own future aggression. I think if this is like a reg versus reg spot, it's a mega standard 4-bet, get it in. Well, this guy hadn't 3-bet me all session. I don't ever remember him 3-betting. I'm not super familiar with this game, but I don't recall him 3-betting very often or with any kind of frequency. And I think I think I've overreacted. That for the second time in the video, I think this is a spot where I've overplayed my hand somewhat. And a lot of you guys will be sat thinking, fucking hell, Reg, you got Ace King. You know, of course you've got to get it in pre. Ace King suited, it's cut off versus button. I hear all of those things. These are the things that are going right through my mind, and I overlook the fact that this guy just doesn't fucking 3-bet. He never 3-bets. He just calls or folds and limps and things. And people who just call, fold, and limp start 3-betting. You've got to sit up and take notice, and I didn't. And this is what I'm always preaching to people who I work with. You know, you've got to pay attention to your tables. You've got to make strong reads. You've got to, if you're paying attention and someone's really aggressive, then you play much looser versus them. You stack off lighter versus them. You call them down lighter, etc. If someone's really, really passive, you make tighter folds against them. This is poker. This is what poker is. It's when you're playing on like the fast fold games, but there's tons of regulars and lots of people are playing very similar styles, then you're gonna have a very lot of super standard lines yourselves. But when you're playing in games like these, I mean, look how many greens there are around. These are not standard poker games, and we should absolutely, in my opinion, be making more effort to go out of our way to exploit people in terms of like making super tight folds against them, making super loose calls against people who are too aggressive. And I mean, we end up 4-betting and getting it in here, and that's completely fine. I have no issue with it in general. No one can really argue with it being like an okay play, but is it the best play? And I'm not sure it is against this dude. I think when we 4-bet, I think, yeah, you can call with worse for sure, or call with hands that we have good equity against, but when he jams, we're just going to be in not good shape. I think 4-bet fold here or call are way better options than 4-bet get it in, which is what I eventually went with. And I'm not playing results here. I don't do result orientated thinking. I often chastise my people who come and work with me for doing it, saying I shouldn't have done this because he had this. Now, you're playing against their range and their tendencies, and against some people, 4-bet get Ace King in is a fucking fist pump. It's an absolute fist pump it's a joyous moment. Against this dude, I think 4-bet small, fold to a 5-bet, or call and play some post flops, probably going to be a far superior line. But Ruthless Reggie, this is me trying to be ruthless. Ruthless Reggie loads up like a pretty big 4-bet. Delivers it. Our man just snap jams. We know by now our Ace King's in big trouble, but we you know, we're not going to be putting 30 big blinds in pre-flop with Ace King or folding it. So we just like resign ourselves to calling it off, and we just hope we're in a flip, which we were, and we did not get there. And I hold myself responsible for that hand because, as I said earlier, I mean, if this was against some players I played later in the session, there's a player called Matt's Mum who turned up out of nowhere, never seen the guy before, turned up playing every table, playing pretty aggressive, or if it's up against like some of the stronger 13 regulars, it's incredibly standard, and we wouldn't even be looking at it. As you know, we haven't been looking at flips, we haven't been looking at coolers in these sessions. We've been looking purely at hands where I feel that something interesting's happened and something to talk about's happened. So this isn't just like a standard flip for me. This is something what I in my opinion, I've overplayed my hand. I've not understood. Well, I understood his range, but just decided to be ruthless or aggressive against it, and it's not right, and I think I was slightly over-adjusted at the start of the month. I think I've been playing some of my draws too aggressively. I think I've been playing some of these like types of hands. I think I've been playing like marginal hands with equity too aggressively. Instead of trying to realise my equity like these guys will let you do time and time again. So instead of trying to realise my equity as cheaply as possible and then try and find some bluffs on later streets or some good value bets on later streets, depending on whether we improve or not, I've been like I think I've been too aggressive with my equity, and it's good to be aggressive with equity when you have some fold equity too. So if you've got a hand like this and you think you've got some fold equity, or the ace-3 suited, then fine, apply the pressure because you think you're going to get some folds. But if you just pound the money in knowing you're not getting folds and just going gamble, then you know, I think we could do better, and I think we could have played both this ace-king suited and the ace-3 suited differently, and had some better results. I mean, in this hand it wouldn't have mattered because we'd have flopped the flush draw, we'd have just check shoved on him, so we would have lost the maximum in this hand still. But I think the ace-3 in particular is a situation where I'm kind of like overvaluing or putting too much stock in my actual equity and kind of ignoring the fact that I likely didn't have too much forward equity, and that's a mistake. You know, there's no point like semi-bluffing against people who aren't folding. You know, you may, against people who aren't going to fold, just call, take your odds and see what happens, rather than try and blow them off a hand that they're likely never likely to be blown off. And I think in these types of games, that's absolutely the correct advice. It's not the correct advice if you're playing like fast fold and stuff, because people are going to have way wider 3-bet ranges. You're going to have way more fold equity with your 4-bets against people who are 3-betting a little bit lighter, etc. So I mean, if this is playing again in a fast fold game against somebody who had like a 12% 3-bet on the button, then 4-bet, get ace-king in, no issue with it. But this guy's probably not got higher than a 2% 3-bet, maybe a 3% 3-bet, full stop. So getting ace-king in against someone who's only 3-betting maybe 3.5%, 4% or whatever, who knows, it's unnecessary in my opinion. Some of you guys would absolutely disagree and just think this is completely standard, but I think that's a cop-out, because I don't think it is completely standard against somebody who just 3-bets so rarely. So here we are here on table 1. We've got all green again. We've isolated an under the gun limper to 5x, 7-8 suited, which I think is completely fine. We picked up a collar on the button. This must be nice to be you. I've got him as a green tag. I've never seen him make any big mistakes yet, to be honest. I mean, I guess I've got him as a green tag because he doesn't always top his stack up. There must be a reason why he's tagged green. I don't know what it is, because whenever I've played against him, he seems to play more than one table, and he doesn't seem to play badly. So I'm not sure why he's tagged green. We might have to reassess his tag. There will be a reason. I'll have seen him short stacked at some point, or I'll have seen him limp into pots from time to time. Something will have happened to give him that tag. But overall, I get the feeling that he's probably doesn't warrant having the green tag, and should probably be maybe an orange tag. But anyways, let's continue with the hand and see what happens. So we flop a flush draw. And this is one of the spots where we were talking about earlier, where I think we should bet our small flush draws here to get fold equity from stuff like, to try and get folds from 10 jack, king queen, 9 10, or like low, just all the over, like 2 random overcards you can have, where if we bet they're just going to fold them all. I mean, if we have ace high, we don't need him to fold 10 9 very often, but when we have 7 8 in folding, to getting him to fold a hand like 10 9 is a really good result. And then we got this guy still in the pot too, so I think this is like a decent c bet. But had we had, say, ace 10 of spades, I think then it would perform really well as like a check call maybe, or just check it through and try and realise all of our equity. We do go for a c bet. I think I prefer to see myself bet a little bit bigger there. That really put the pressure on. I don't think this puts enough pressure on like had like pocket 6s, pocket 5s, pocket 8s, things like that, pocket 9s maybe. I think I'd prefer to assume go with a bigger bet there. I think the 180 is too small. Turn shouldn't change too much. I'm not sure what I think about that sizing. Again, I think we should be a bit more committed with that size. If we're going to barrel that turn, we should either decide to check and just whatever, see what happens. Probably hope it checks through, or fold to a large bet. or we should bet much bigger. And this is kind of, it's a fucking wishy-washy sort of bet. It's non-committing. It's just, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think with all my range here, should be betting much, much bigger. There was like, what, £9 something in the pot. We need to be getting it up there. We need to be getting it up to like 7 or 8. That bet's way too small. It's a fucking half and halfy sort of bet, isn't it? I don't like it. I don't like it at all, in fact. I'd prefer to go much bigger there or check. It's a sort of spot where we're betting to turn into two players. So, you know, we're representing a lot of strength, because like when you double barrel in a multi-way pot, you know, you're typically saying, oh, fucking hell, guys, I've got something here. I've got something really strong. So you'd want to make much bigger sizing, because if I had, let's say, 3s full here, and I got 2 callers on this board, I'd be putting a really chunky bet in on this turn. If we had like 2 aces or 2 kings, I'd be looking to put a really chunky bet in, hoping he got out of the way and just stack off against Mr. Dean. I don't like the sizing here. We should go, if we're going to bet, we go much bigger or just check. But I think I prefer the much bigger bet. And you get called again by Must Be Nice to Be You. Then we hit the river, and we've got like just over a pot size bet left. So the issue here is now, I think checking's out of the question. I think we're going to miss way too much value versus pocket 8s, pocket 7s, pocket 10s. If somehow he's got a wheel or something now, or what would it be, 5, 6? It seems unlikely, but I think he's going to check back. If we check here, he's going to check back most hands that we beat, and only bet hands that we lose to. And the pot's too big to bet fold, I think. I mean, maybe we could think about like betting 6 fold into a raise, but I'm not sure I like that too much either. I'm not sure I like what I did either, because I actually end up going with the overbet jam, and I just don't know. I mean, like, all in all now, I think maybe a healthy, like, I don't know. I mean, I know the result of the hand, and I'm still not sure what to fucking do. Bet fold 11, bet fold 10, I think would be the best line. He's never going to raise. If we bet £10 here, he's never ever going to raise us with a worse hand. He's only going to raise us when he's got bigger flushes and when he's got full houses and quads and things. Yeah, so I think now I'd like to see myself bet 10, fold to a raise. I think my play was the second best play. Which is go all in. I think like bet 10, fold to a raise is better than going all in. But I think going all in is better than like betting really small and folding to a raise. Because if we bet really small and fold like 5 or 6 here, we just induce people to think, oh, that's a fucking blocking bet, let's get over it, let's get after it type of thing. And you just get yourself in all kinds of confusing spots. So I think if we could have my time again here, I'd bet fold 10. Second choice would be this one, and like third choice would be bet small, fold to a raise. We do jam the money in, he just snap us off, and he had 9s full. So yeah, I think I played that hand not great. I think we should definitely bet bigger. If we bet bigger on the turn, then the river's a no-brainer. It's just fucking ship it in. We left ourselves with like a weird pot size, or like just pot on a bit left in our stack. Should have bet bigger on the turn and jammed the river, but as played, I think we should have bet folded the river for about, maybe bet fold £10 there. We've got one more hand to look at. It's the 2 queens over here. We have isolated a very loose player to £1 with pocket queens with 10-20 table. He just like donks into us for £3.10. I don't remember this hand. Do not remember it. Maybe I marked it to look at the ace king that we completely bricked out on in the 3 or 4 bet pot, but that's by the by. We're not looking at that hand, we're looking at the queens over here. What would I like to see myself do here? How much does this dude have behind? See if we can pause it quickly before. Yep, so we've got £11 behind. I think here we probably should just call and then just like jam over any turn bet or call it off on the turn. By calling, we allow Monkey to maybe try and make some moves, but I don't think Monkey's a move making type. It's not his style, I think, to like just bluff here when we just call. So yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty standard. Just call and see what happens. I mean, raising can't be terrible, and we can definitely have worse hands that want to pay it off. Maybe we could raise really small, but I think I just like calling and then just not folding. Now we just jam. I'm not really sure what there was to look at there. Not sure why we're reviewing this one. I guess just maybe because we decided to go for a slow play and then just allow him to continue with aggression. Maybe I was thinking we can review this time because had we raised, maybe he'll fold his king nine. Super unlikely. When people pot top pair, when weak fishy players pot top pair, they ain't potting it to fold it. So not quite sure why we're looking at this one really. Just get it in really good. Oh, and lose. Maybe we showed it because it was a pretty rough session to begin with. We ended up, I think at one point we were stuck like 90 quid, which is a lot in these games, especially when you got green everywhere. Being stuck 90 quid in like green everywhere games is fucking horrible. They ended up booking like an £8 win for the session in the end, and that's, yes, I think that's why I wanted to talk about it actually, now I think about it. Just want to like do a little bit of like self-praise for my discipline at the moment. I'm incredibly happy with that mental. I don't think my mental game's ever been in better states because I've been getting stuck quite a bit, you know, like we all do. And I've just been recovering so often in sessions and just putting the grind in, putting the hours in, both when I'm winning and when I'm losing. I used to be a bit of a flake. I wouldn't play for more than like an hour at a time. I'd just like, at one point, I was dropping to playing like maybe 40, 50 hours per month tops. I was just booking a few wins or whatever. Obviously getting to losing sessions, fuck it, I can't be arsed and not playing. And my mental game has really, it's reached really new peaks now. When I get stuck, I get annoyed and my stomach starts to get a little bit knotted, like fucking hell, you know, and then frustrated, anxious, whatever you want to call it. All those things happen to me, but my play, it still stays at a high level for me. I'm not saying I'm playing high level poker, but it stays at a high level for me. I'd very rarely like dip into B game anymore, and almost never into C and D game. I cannot remember the last time I just like monkey tilted a stack off. So I'm really pleased. I think this is why I wanted to go about it, because this session, like, we'd lost like the flip with the ace king, we lost with the ace 3 suited, but we'd also been like getting beat in silly spots like this, in like 50 blind pots where we lose 50 blinds or 40 blinds or 30 blinds. It'd been like a really frustrating session up to this point, and we were like an hour and 20 in. I think it ended up being like a 3-hour session. And I was just gutted, I was frustrated, and with all these good tables, you look at them and you think it's a good opportunity to like to have a good session, and like, you know, because we're not always going to find these sessions like this. Sometimes we're going to be playing when there's like less good tables around. So when you are in these situations where you've just got like countless fish at your tables and you find yourself stuck like 3 buy-ins, maybe 4 buy-ins in terms of like big blinds, it can be really frustrating and demoralizing. And I was all of those things. I was fed up, but I didn't allow it to affect my play. I allowed myself to be frustrated with the situation and manage my anxiety, and just managed to keep on like a really solid head and just say, you know what, this is poker, Reggie, this is what you put yourself up to. If you don't want to, like, because we're not working much at the moment on our day job, if you don't want to work on your day job because, you know, you're disillusioned with the company management, then this is what you've dealt yourself into this. You need to make your money at poker. You've got to grind it out. You've got to tough it out when things aren't going your way. You can't sulk. You know, when you're earning like full-time wages and you're making a bit of money from poker, it doesn't hurt when you spunk off a couple of buy-ins in pure rage tilt. It matters a lot if I do this now. If I was to like go on tilt and lose like another 60, all of a sudden I've got a £150 hole to dig myself out of, and I'm relying on poker for some wages this month. It's a bad situation. So I was really pleased with how I just gutted it out, and and stayed in good games and kept my composure. And it didn't matter whether I got back to winning or losing. It matters, did I play well for the next 2 hours? The results are irrelevant, but did I play well for the next 2 hours? And I did. I played really well for the next 2 hours, and we actually managed to like claw ourselves out of the hole. And then the next session we played later on that night, I actually managed to book like a £50 win. And this maybe wouldn't have happened to me 4 or 5 years ago. I'm really, really pleased with I'm doing a lot of things right at the moment. We're getting the mental game right. We're getting the game selection thing right. We're not grinding games that are shit just for the sake of playing. We're putting long hours in when the situations are good, and we're not playing when the situations are bad. I'm just being very professional, and I'm hoping by the end of the month my results will reward me for what I think at the minute is a super attitude. So there we go. That's the end of the video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, or you've again, I think there's been some interesting hands. We've looked at hands that I don't feel have played very well again, because I don't think there's much point in looking at hands that you have played well, unless you played them really well in a tough situation. No point just looking at, oh, look at me, I've got aces and I just stacked a fish. Who gives a fuck about that? So yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying it. I'm certainly enjoying doing them. Don't forget the thumbs up, the likes, the shares, the comments, and we'll be back again in a day or so with another video. Bye bye for now.